Good evening, everybody. My name is Jared Staley. I'm with the City of Cambridge, the Economic Opportunity and Development Division. Thank you for joining us tonight for our workshop, Are You Bankable with Zenagos? Before we jump into things tonight, I just want to reiterate that there is one-on-one business financial coaching with Zenagos following these. The first thing that you should know, though, there are some eligibility requirements. While the workshop is open to anybody, the one-on-one business financing coaching is for eligible small businesses in Cambridge. There are 3 ways to be eligible. Your business is located in what we call an NRS district. This is an area where small businesses and folks who live in there can receive federal funding for certain programs. Or you, the business owner, live in an NRS district. If you don't meet either of those, there's still an opportunity to be eligible. And this is if your business, you as a business owner, are income eligible and you own a micro business. And a micro business is any business with fewer than 5 full-time employees. If you're interested in one-on-one coaching and you haven't filled out the eligibility form yet, please do so. And if you have questions, you're welcome to contact me. And on the right-hand side of your screen is my contact information. But my email for anyone who may not be able to see that is jstaley@cambridgema.gov. And with that, I will say that this is recorded, and so it will be posted online afterwards if you would like to go back and view it. But without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to the Zenagos team.
Great. All right, Monica, we're going to test and make sure that the sound is working here. Everything is shipshape. Okay, let's roll. All right, thank you, Jared, for that kind introduction. We're really excited to be here today. I'm going to introduce the Zenagos team. And as I do that, I'm going to ask in the chat, what is your business situation? Let us know what kind of business you're in or want to be in, and whether it's one of the 3 situations on the slide here. So are you wanting to start a new business? Are you wanting to expand an existing business? Or are you wanting to acquire an existing business? So let me know so that I can focus on what you need to know today. So I'm Karen Baldischweiler. My colleagues call me K14, so they don't have to pronounce my crazy 14-letter Swiss last name. I'm one of the 4 co-founders of Zenagos. We call ourselves the Zenagos experts, and all 4 of us are here today. We have extensive business experience. So Monica is the master of the complex deal involving combinations of private companies, nonprofits, and governments. So as an example, she negotiated a ground lease for a $13 million public-private aviation project in North Carolina recently. Stacy has advised branded companies, including Fidelity and Land's End, but she spent the last 2 decades helping a wide variety of small businesses to improve their digital marketing, technology, and automation. And Mavis has sold and delivered multi-million-dollar e-commerce technology deals to massive global companies like Walmart and Nestle. And I was a sales subject matter expert for EdTech deals serving really big colleges like University of Kansas and the College of William and Mary. So we each have a lot of experience in really big enterprises. But what we're most proud of is that we've started 17 small businesses between us. We've each been a solo entrepreneur at least once in our lives, and we know how hard it is to get one customer to buy. Now at Zenagos, we help small business owners at a very affordable cost because we want others to have the help that we wish we'd had back then when we were starting our businesses. Our clients typically fall into one of 3 categories. So first, we help a small business owner who needs to try new ideas to increase revenue. Second, we work with business owners who need to make their revenue steady and predictable so they can make a self-sustaining company. And finally, we advise business owners who want to launch a new offering and they want to get it right the first time. What they all have in common is that the entrepreneur spends a lot of time wondering about their decisions. We help remove all that second guessing and serve as a sounding board. What's different about us is that we're available Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern time. So our clients don't need to make an appointment. They just ask their question and we respond in as close to real time as we can. There are some questions on the screen here that we help our clients to answer. So, no more wasted time wondering what they should do. So that's a little bit about us. We're thrilled to have an opportunity to share with and learn from you today about Are You Bankable? couple of housekeeping items. So please do ask questions. If I'm in the flow of explaining something, I may ask you to hang on to it for just a minute. But if you're attending online, Monica's watching out for your questions and passing them to Stacy here in the room. I'll give you some quiz questions to answer in there too. And at the end of the presentation, we'll have some Q&A. So if there's a question you'd like us to answer, just go ahead and put it in the Q&A. If you want to connect with one or more of us on LinkedIn after the session, please make sure to say that you were at the CDD workshop. That way we will accept your invitation. And you can just spell our names in LinkedIn. You'll be able to find us. Our session objectives today. So by the end of this session, you're going to be able to describe how banks decide whether you're bankable, detail the keys to telling a compelling business story, discuss any imperfect elements of your financial history, and then list the documents that you'll need to collect in order to apply for an SBA loan. And you don't need to worry about taking a lot of notes or screenshots because at the end of the presentation, we'll give you a QR code and a link so you can download the summary slides. So first of all, what does bankable even mean? It actually doesn't sound like a real word, does it? A banker is only willing to give a loan to a business owner who's considered bankable. So that is somebody who's a good risk, somebody who will pay back the loan. So this term's come to be used more widely. For example, in Hollywood, a movie star who's a safe bet to have a profitable movie is called a bankable star. So Scarlett Johansson, Denzel Washington, Meryl Streep, Jason Statham, these are all bankable stars right now. So how does a banker decide if you're a good loan risk? That is, if you are bankable. So pop quiz, let's see what we already know. Here are 10 factors that a banker might use to make this decision. So which ones do you think are the most important? Take just a couple of minutes to look at them and decide which 3 you think are the most important, top 3. You can use the little letter in the upper left-hand corner to help yourself remember which ones they are. What are the top 3? And you can use the chat if you want to ask questions about any of them. I'm going to give you just a minute to decide which ones the top 3 are. Now, if you're super quick and you get ahead, go ahead and rank them all 1 to 10. All right, now that we've thought about it for a minute, let's play a game. You be the banker. I'm going to give you 3 business scenarios to evaluate. They're fictional, but based on real business situations. So pretend that you're a banker and your job depends on giving loans that get paid back. After each scenario, decide whether you would be willing to give that business owner a loan. Please set the arrow in your Zoom chat to everyone so that we can all learn from each other's answers. Let's start with Harry's salon. This is Harry. He has worked as a stylist in downtown Boston for 5 years, and he has a full book of clients. Now he wants to start his own salon, and it's going to be his first business. He found a really cool space to lease. It's only $30 a square foot, which is actually cheap in downtown Boston, believe it or not. And that rent, that he's going to ask for an $80,000 loan. So that's going to cover rent for 6 months and all the equipment and inventory he needs. It's also going to cover operating expenses for 6 months. Now, his mother's going to help him out by serving as the receptionist and assistant for the first several months. The new space can hold 4 stylists. Each stylist is responsible for bringing in their own customers. And between cuts and colors and product, they can get an average price of about $120 an appointment in downtown Boston. We added it all up, and each stylist can make about $15,000 a month in revenue. And so if Harry has 2 stylists, they can make $7,500 a month in profit. So the loan payment would be $1,200 a month. So they could make $7,500 a month in profit. The loan payment would be $1,200 a month. He doesn't have any debts. His credit is fine. And he also has 2 Bitcoins, and they're worth about $83,000 today. They might have just dipped below $80,000 this morning. It was a little bit of a bad day on the market. So, but he has 2 Bitcoins. So what do you think? Would you give Harry a loan? What do you think? And you can go ahead and feel free to engage in the chat. Somebody gave Harry a thumbs up for getting a loan. All right, go Harry. All right, next scenario. Romance sushi. The applicant's name is Aiko. She has two business partners, and they own and operate a sushi restaurant located in Quincy, Massachusetts. Aiko is the money partner, and one partner is a sushi chef, and the third partner works reception and tables. They've been operating for about 5 years with only 20 seats in the restaurant. They have a line of customers around the block every night. Now, the customers who can't wait will just do takeout. They want to expand to a bigger space in a better location, 2 blocks down the street, and they want to buy the building. So the building is going to cost $1 million. They'll put $200,000 down, so they need an $800,000 loan to buy the building. The revenue has been growing steadily even during the pandemic, and they have $30,000 a month in profit now. And when they get the new space, that's going to enable them to make $46,000 a month in profit. So the loan payment would be $12,000 a month. They have audited financials and a business plan that shows exactly how they're going to market to fill those extra seats. Mavis helped them make that business plan. They have no debt, and none of them has ever taken a business loan before. Aiko has outstanding credit. The second partner, the sushi chef, has a good credit score, and the third partner has a poor credit score. So what do you think? Would you give Aiko and her two partners a loan? You can let us know in the chat. See a thumbs up. Ooh, another thumbs up. All right, they're getting the loan. They're getting the loan. Okay, that's scenario 2. Thumbs up, float right through. I love that. All right, third scenario. Get Smart Tutoring. This is Elizabeth, and she wants a $120,000 loan. She wants to buy a tutoring business that's located in Newton, Massachusetts. The company has 6 tutors, and it charges $80 an hour. Now, the tutors get paid $45 an hour, so the company keeps $35 an hour for every tutoring session. GetSmart makes almost $40,000 a month in revenue, but only for 7 months a year because people don't want tutoring in the summer or during the holidays. They averages out if you just spread it across the whole year to about $5,000 a month in profit every month. Elizabeth's loan payment would be $1,800 a month. Now, she has a plan to increase revenue. She believes that GetSmart is undercharging relative to other tutors in Newton. She thinks she can raise her prices from $80 an hour to $100 an hour. Now, if she raises prices to $100 an hour, then her monthly profit would be $10,900. She has a long-standing relationship with her bank's business development offer. Several years ago, she bought a furniture business and she paid off the business loan to that bank. So the tutoring company has done great bookkeeping and their financials have been audited for the past 3 years. And Elizabeth has outstanding personal and business credit scores. So what do you think? Does Elizabeth get the loan? Ooh, another thumbs up. Okay, we're a pretty happy bank today. We are giving out the loans. Let's go back to that list of factors where you were choosing a top 3, and let's talk about how the bankers prioritize. So I took all the colored tiles and I put them in order from most important to least important. So this ranking is based on Zenagos' experience working with bankers on SBA loans. Now remember, every bank and banker is a little bit different, so we are generalizing. While these are the 3 most important factors, all of these factors matter and can make a difference in whether or not you get a loan. So let's start with letter C. Does your business have predictable and steady cash flow? So bankers know there's a direct relationship between a business's cash flow and its ability to pay back a loan. So a business with predictable and steady cash flow would be prioritized. So the 3 businesses we reviewed, Harry Salon doesn't have any cash flow right now because it hasn't opened yet. Romance Sushi has a lot of steady cash flow, and they've been doing that for 5 years, and it's been growing. And Get Smart Tutoring has cash flow, but only during 7 months of the year. So Romance Sushi is the strongest on this dimension. All right. Second, letter F. Does your business show a trend of growing revenue? Bankers believe that if your revenue is growing, you have a better chance of succeeding. So if your business is growing, you can make some mistakes and you can still succeed. One of the 3 businesses that we just reviewed, Harry Salon, doesn't have any revenue yet, so it can't be growing. Romance Sushi has had growing revenue for the past few years, and we don't know whether Get Smart Tutoring has growing revenue. We didn't cover that point, so we'd have to go and ask them for more information to find out if they had growing revenue. All right, The third most important factor, letter I, do you have a good history of repaying debt? So even though past performance does not guarantee future results, bankers' experience tells them that people who've paid off a debt before are a better bet to pay one off again. So of the three businesses we just reviewed, only Elizabeth, who wants to buy Get Smart Tutoring, has a history of having taken and paid off a business loan. So does this mean that you don't have these three things, you can't get a loan? No. People get loans every day who don't have ideal loan applications. However, you do need to tell a compelling story about how you're going to use the loan to create value. And you may need to fill out extra paperwork to demonstrate the value that you can create. And in some cases, you may need to take the time to change some things about your plan before you will qualify. All right, so what's the answer to our three scenarios? So the answer is it depends. Every bank is different and conditions are changing all the time. So sometimes a bank really wants to give out loans and its criteria will loosen up a little bit and it's easy to get loans. Other times the bank will get very conservative and the underwriters reject most of the loan applications that get brought in. So we're going to tell you what we think the strengths and the weaknesses are of our three scenarios, but there's no perfect right answer. Luck and timing are factors. And building a relationship with a banker may make a significant difference in whether you get the loan. So if you get a no, don't give up, talk to some more bankers, and learn everything you can. All right, so for Harry's salon, the answer is likely not yet. Harry might be able to get a loan eventually, but he's going to need to provide a lot of paperwork first. So personally, whenever I get a no in any approval process, I think no means try harder. So Harry's going to have to collect quite a few documents and try pretty hard. For example, he doesn't have any history as a business owner and he has no credit history. So you might say, well, that's true whenever somebody starts a new business. And it is. In fact, that's one reason why the federal government created SBA loans, which are partially guaranteed. So they guarantee part of the loan to give the banks incentive to make loans to new businesses. Otherwise, banks would never take chances on new businesses. So the SBA loans are there specifically to help new businesses. However, Harry also doesn't have a business plan. The bank is definitely going to want a business plan from a first-time business owner. And another issue is that Harry's plan is for the stylist to bring in their own clients. That sounds good, but when a stylist leaves one salon for another, sometimes their clients won't come with them. They'll stay with the old salon. So he's going to need to spend some money on marketing. Most salons do spend a lot of money on marketing, and there's a reason for that. So the banker would probably be pretty skeptical of this and ask Harry to create a marketing plan. And finally, banks don't consider Bitcoin to be currency, at least not yet. So the Bitcoin wouldn't work as collateral for the loan. Some of you might have thought of that. But Harry could sell his Bitcoin himself and self-finance the business. So he could cash out and take his $160,000 and he'd be in good shape to have his own business loan. All right. For Romance Sushi, the answer is likely yes. Romance has steady cash flow and could even pay the loan payment for the building now, although it would be 40% of their current profits. So they'll be better paying that loan payment when they have the bigger space and they can get more revenue. There's plenty of demand. They have a line down the street and the new location is just a couple blocks away. So the customers would likely go there. With a larger space, the loan payment would only be 26% of their profit, which is pretty reasonable for ICO and her partners to pay. They have a trend of growing revenue. They even made it through the pandemic on takeout business. And they have a detailed business plan and audited financial statements. They don't have a history of business loans. And one of them does have poor credit. So those are challenges to overcome. However, the bank will hold the title to the building throughout the loan. So the building is its own collateral. So they're likely to get this loan approved. Now, Get Smart Tutoring is right on the bubble. There's lumpy seasonal revenue, but there are also 3 years of consistent earnings. There's no collateral. In fact, the 6 tutors could just quit if they don't like the new owner. Elizabeth does have a strong track record with that particular bank and a history of successfully paying off business loans. So the banker would probably ask Elizabeth to do a competitive survey and prove that $100 an hour is actually the going rate in Newton. The bank would probably ask for an independent valuation of the business by an independent broker or by a part of the bank. Given Elizabeth's positive track record, she might get this loan. It wouldn't be an easy call for the banker. When it's a close call like this, if they're not sure, that's when intuition comes into play. Does it feel to the banker like you're going to be able to pay back the loan? This is where that previous relationship with the bank can be really important. So it's not all documents. The way you present yourself in your plan really matters. So we're going to talk about that next, how to tell your story effectively. All right, let us know in the chat how you like that game. We're always trying to improve our presentations. Okay, in a little while, we're going to talk about the kinds of documents that you need to collect when you apply for a loan. You're going to have to produce a lot of documents, and you're going to need to remain persistent, calm, and patient. But handing in all the documents is only part of the process. The other part is telling a compelling story that convinces the bank to place a bet on you. So, what's the process for getting a loan? First, you need to start building a relationship with the person at your bank who talks to business owners about loans. They're often called the business development officer or BDO. It's never too early to start building this relationship. So just go to your business bank, ask for an appointment, and say you might need a loan in the future, and just ask a lot of questions. When you're ready to actually apply for the loan, step two, you're going to need to put together the business story. This story needs to get the banker excited about the opportunity, and it needs to build your credibility. We're going to talk next about how to put that story together. After you tell the story, but before you hand in any documents, you need to give your banker the heads up about any past financial issues. Some people try to hide this information, but you really want to surface it right away before you've spent a lot of time on the process. Honesty is the best policy. If you try to hide it and they find out later, that's going to destroy the relationship with the bank. Finally, you have to play the document game. You'll need to hand in a whole lot of documents to the bank. So we'll talk about what kind of documents those will be in just a minute. Okay, you need a couple of key things to make a compelling story. First, we need to know how are you going to spend the money? And second, we need to know how will that create new value for your business so you can repay the loan on time. Let's start with the use of funds. Bankers tend to like some uses of funds better than others. Let's cover some examples for how you could spend the money. You could use the funds for capital expenditures, such as delivery trucks, tools and machinery, or buildings. So as an example, you'll recall that Romance Sushi wanted to buy the building where the restaurant would be located. That's capital expenditure. Banks tend to favor capital expenditures. They like them because the equipment or the real estate has strong resale value, so they can recapture funds if the loan is not repaid. You could use the funds for raw material and inventory like lumber or fabrics or rubber. As an example, Harry's salon would have needed to create an inventory of hair products for sale, and they need an inventory of hair colors to use. So those would be inventory and raw materials. While inventory and raw materials have some resale value, it's typically much smaller than for equipment or real estate. So banks consider loans for raw materials to be a higher risk than loans for capital expenditures. But they like that they can see how those raw materials are going to create new money, new value for you. Because if you have the raw materials, you make new product and you can sell that and get new revenue. So it's still a pretty favored use of funds. You could use the funds for wages, such as staff to manage your customers or staff to deliver the work or customer service staff. So as an example, Elizabeth wanted her loan to purchase Get Smart Tutoring, which had 6 staff members who worked as tutors. So that's a case where the loan funds would be used to retain existing experienced employees. Banks can be enthusiastic about paying sales staff because they'll increase the company's revenue. Remember, they want new value. Banks are less excited about paying for staff who just deliver the existing product or service, since they see that as just more cost. It's not a way to grow the business with new revenue. So they're less excited about cash for staff, unless they're sales staff. You could use the funds for a financial strategy, such as paying off short-term debt, handling your carrying costs, or bridging funds while you wait for your accounts receivable. None of our 3 scenarios was about using loans for financial purposes, but it is common for businesses to get a line of credit or a loan to ensure that they can meet payroll while they wait for money that they know they're going to receive. For this use of funds, the financial track record of the business owner is really, really important. So the bank needs to believe that you know what you're doing and that your financial strategy will be successful. Finally, you could use the funds for sales and marketing, such as funding a new salesperson, subscribing to a new CRM, customer management software, or spending on ads. So none of our 3 scenarios was about loans for sales and marketing, but it is common for businesses to propose using a marketing strategy to grow. In addition, it's pretty common for a banker to ask, how are you going to create demand? So remember Romance Sushi? They had a line around the block, and so they could use that as evidence of the demand that they had. Remember Harry's Salon? Harry didn't set aside any money for marketing, and so the banker would be worried about whether he had a good plan for creating demand. So demand matters if you're going to make a sales and marketing strategy. All right, quiz question. Which use of funds would most appeal to a bank? Let me know what you think. You can put the number of the answer you think is the correct answer. You, my Zenagos experts, can try as well. Mhm. That's right. The most correct answer is number one, to buy raw materials to increase production. So the reason they like that is that increased production is most likely to increase revenue, and that makes it more likely that you can pay off your loan on time. So the other answers are all ways of paying down existing expenses, and that won't make the business grow or make more money. All right, so you have to know how you're going to use the funds. You need to put a story together that explains how that activity will create new value so you can repay your loan on time. You want that banker to think, I see the opportunity for this business idea, and I can see how the owner is going to make enough money to repay this loan. So to get that message across, you need to cover each of these 3 points. Sorry, it says each of these points, rather. Who is your target customer? What problem are you solving? Some people find it easier to talk about this as customer pain points. So what pain points are you addressing? What's your solution, and why is it different from and better than your competitors? How are you going to get leads and win new customers? And how are you going to use the money to generate cash flow? And don't forget the last one. Why are you and your team qualified to do this well?
You need to pause
Mhm.
because people are trying to get in and they can't get in.
Okay, we're going to pause for just a minute and we're going to get some people in.
It's a link the link that they were sent is not working.
Do you have their email? You can send it to me.
Yeah, you can send it to Mavis.
We had a little technical issue with the link, so we'll just take a brief pause while we figure that out.
Oh, I could just go in. Oh. Yep, she got in. All right. You may resume.
Okay.
All right, where were we? We were talking about what needs to be in your story. So let's just go through that again. Who's your target customer? What problem are you solving? What's your solution, and why is it different from and better than your competitors? How are you going to get leads and win new customers? And how are you going to use the money to generate future cash flow? And don't forget the last one. Why are you and your team qualified to do this really well? So we're going to walk through an example. So let's say that Marie needs a loan to buy a restaurant. So she lives in a small town in Vermont where the economy revolves around recreation, skiing in the winter, camping and golf in the summer. She's found a restaurant that's been on a trucking route for the last 20 years right next to a gas station. It was owned and operated by an older couple, but the wife suddenly became ill, so the cafe's been closed for the past 6 months. The husband's been caring for her. Now he needs to sell. How can Marie put a story together to convince the bank to make the loan to let her buy the restaurant? So Monica on our Zenagos team is a next level relationship builder. She teaches our clients that if you're struggling with how to make your story compelling, then turn it into a hero epic. Everyone loves a good hero story. So number one, identify your hero, in this case, your target customer. The customer for Marie's restaurant is either a trucker who stops at the gas station and decides to take a break for a meal, or a tourist who's in town to enjoy the local recreation. In summer, that's families who are camping and golfing. In the winter, that's skiers. So our hero's goal, either way, is a hearty meal at a reasonable price. These customers would probably enjoy friendly service. And since they're not locals, one of their challenges is they don't know the area. So they probably often need directions and other local knowledge. So when you're thinking about your customer, write down their goals, explain the kinds of things they hope for, list any relevant challenges. Number two, Now that I have my hero in mind, I'm ready to describe the villain, the problem. I want to explain why does the issue matter and give a sense for how big it is. What's the size of the problem? Since the current restaurant closed 6 months ago, there aren't enough dining options in the area. So the closest breakfast place is a 40-minute drive from all the local campsites and lodges. And when you get there, you have to wait in a long line. There's a little lunch place at the golf course, but they're not really designed for golfers. It's just not a great option. They're only designed rather for golfers. It's just not a great option for families. So another sign that there's a need for a restaurant is that before it closed, that cafe was always full every day. Number 3, introduce the guide, which is your solution or offering, your solution to the problem. So make sure to explain your results and brag about any achievements. So, for example, the Timber Table is a cozy respite for truckers and tourists who need a hearty meal at a reasonable price. Our coffee is legendary, our baked goods are fresh, and you will never leave hungry. You will leave feeling recharged and ready for action. Number 4, showcase the journey. So, how are you going to get leads and customers? People always want to know how you're going to do it. So, for example, we will partner with local campsites and ski lodges to offer coupons to their guests. The gas station next door has an average of 1,200 patrons per day, and we'll put an A-frame sign there offering a free baked good for those with a gas station receipt. The local campsites have a combined average of 800 visitors a day and even more in the busy season. Number 5, tell how you're going to use the money to make more money. Don't forget to tell the financial story. So people who think in money need the story to be told in dollars. For example, we need a $400,000 loan to buy the building and restaurant. We only need 30 customers per day. That's just 10 dining parties to cover all expenses and pay, including the $2,100 a month loan payment. And when the restaurant was open before, it averaged 200 customers a day. The property was assessed at $420,000, so it's a good deal all by itself. So even if the restaurant fails, the bank can get its $400,000 back just with the property alone. Hopefully that makes it a no-brainer. Number 6, explain who's on your side in the battle. Create a team slide that includes you and any key leaders and include your credentials. Do not be modest here. You want to convince the bank that you and your team have the experience to execute the plan successfully. So, for example, Marie has a 15-year track record of running successful restaurants and has relationships with local suppliers from her current job. She paid off a $100,000 loan for her first diner within 3 years, and she sold it 5 years later for $1 million. She's lived in the area for the past 5 years, so she knows the community. And in addition, Mark, her partner, is a contractor, so he can handle all maintenance and repairs for a very low charge. Okay. Almost there. Number 7, end your story with a bang. Celebrate the victory. Paint a vision of a happy ending. So you want to leave your audience, the banker, with a sense of hope and accomplishment. So, for example, we appreciate your consideration of our application and hope that you agree that the Timber Table is a very promising opportunity. We anticipate becoming a positive center of activity and creating 8 new jobs to support our community. Banks definitely want to support and build their local community. So if your project will do that, make sure they know. SBA loans in particular favor people who are going to create jobs. All right, so that's a model for how to tell a story about the loan that you're gonna request. Any questions about the story? And these are all going to be in that PDF takeaway. So when you download the takeaway at the end, if you felt like that went by pretty quickly, which it did, you can take your time with it and look at it at your leisure. Okay, remember, if you have questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A. The chat is one window and the Q&A is the other window. And either way, we'll try to answer it at the end. So that was a pretty happy story. However, life isn't perfect. Most of us have had some kind of financial problem in the past. Some days it rains. So how do you talk about it if you've had a past financial problem? Maybe you had a personal or corporate bankruptcy, a mortgage foreclosure. Maybe you have some liens, bad credit. too much credit card debt. These are common issues, and they will not necessarily prevent you from getting a business loan. Points to remember. First of all, tell the truth. Don't try to hide past issues from the bank. They will most likely discover them, and the fact that you didn't tell them up front will ruin your reputation with them. So how do you talk about something that's so uncomfortable? We have an acronym, IFUL, I-F-U-L, to remind us what to say. So first, I for issue. So state the issue. Tell the truth to your banker and do it before you fill out the paperwork. The banker will be able to tell you right away if this is a showstopper. Then F is for fact. The fact is a situation. State clearly what happened. Don't go on and on. Less is more. U is for unique circumstances. So explain the unique circumstances. What was the problem you were trying to solve? What decision did you make? And what went wrong? And then finally, L for lessons learned. Say what you learned and why this kind of issue isn't going to happen to you again. So I put a few examples on this slide. I'm just going to talk about the first one, but you can look at the other two in the takeaway when you have time. So let's say that my issue is that I had a personal bankruptcy. So then F, the fact was that my mother became ill and required medical care. The U, unique circumstance, was that I paid for my mom's medical bills and they just escalated way beyond what anyone expected. And then finally, L, my lesson learned was that I should have asked for help right at the start. I actually didn't need to pay the medical bills myself. I should have found an attorney or a social worker or someone to help us navigate the healthcare system and figure out how I could have gotten onto Medicaid or something that would have, made a difference. So IFUL, just explain the issue directly and clearly. So just to make sure that you remember everything, we've put it all in a checklist. Make sure that you tell the whole story. So remember, sorry about that. Remember that you put all of the aspects in of the story, including any past financial issues if you have them. All right. Let's say that you've gotten to know your business banker. You've told your story, including giving the banker a heads up about any past financial issues. The banker is going to tell you if the past issues are a deal breaker. If they are, it's better to just know right away before you've done a whole lot of work. If the banker says that you should apply for the loan, then you're ready to play the document game. As you know, a banker makes a decision about whether or not to give a loan based on the balance between risk and reward. The bank makes money when you pay interest on the loan, so that's obviously the bank's reward. However, when they give out the loan, there's always a risk that you won't pay it back, and banks really, really, really don't like risk. So remember, the money that bankers use is not their own money. It belongs to their depositors, so they really need to get it back. To evaluate whether the risk is worth it, bankers use financial documents. So they're kind of similar to investors, but investors are used to risk, and they're happy to take risk because it's their own money. Banks, they have to be very careful in their due diligence when they look at those financial documents. They're going to ask you to fill out lots of documents. When Marie was applying for her loan, I remember at the very end, she'd been going at it for weeks, and she finally called me and said, "That's it, I quit. They asked me for one more thing." And I said, no, you can't quit. You have to be patient with this process. And sure enough, she did get her loan. We're going to walk through the documents that you need to apply for an SBA business loan. The documents that are required for other loans may be slightly different, but you probably won't need quite as many as you need for a government-backed loan like an SBA loan. So we try to give you a worst-case kind of scenario, all of the different kinds of documents. But every bank is different. They all ask for slightly different things. First, let's talk about those application documents. It's just a crazy, crazy list. Now, you probably don't have most of these documents ready right now. In fact, you might not have any of them ready yet. So when we go through this list of documents, don't let it freak you out. It's okay. The most important thing is that you remember that lots of people have applied for loans before, and you can do it too. You are every bit as capable as they are. Don't let the process overwhelm you. Like every challenge, you're just going to do it one step at a time. It helps to put yourself in a game mindset. So think of the bank document process as a game. It's a two-person game like tennis or dominoes or backgammon. I have some photos here from speed chess, which is the same as regular chess, except the players have a limited amount of time. So they use a timer like the one on the right, and it has two sides, one timer for each player, and then there's a button on each side. So player one makes a move and then pushes the button on their side. This stops their clock. So now they can relax for a little bit, but it starts the clock for player number two. So the pressure is now on them. So whenever a banker asks you for a document, think of it like the timer started on your side. Your job is fill out the document as fast as you can, get it back to that banker, and once you give it back, push the timer on your side, and the banker is now the one under pressure. Now, if the banker asks you for another document, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just part of the game. To speed up the decision, you want to limit the amount of time that any document sits with you. So fill it out really fast, get it back as fast as you can. Now make it accurate. Don't just slap it together, but fill it out and get it back as fast as you can. This is a game like tennis. Knock the ball over to the other side so the pressure's not on you anymore. So even though there are a lot of documents, don't be overwhelmed by them. It's just a game, and you are up to this challenge. So let's do an overview, and then we're going to dive into the list. So there are 12 documents that are required for every SBA loan application. You have to do these 12 no matter what. Then, depending on your situation, you might need to submit some other documents. So if you're applying for a loan for a new business, there are 3 more documents that you usually need. Or if you're applying for a loan for an expansion of an existing business, then there are 8 more documents that you usually need. Or if you're applying for a loan for an acquisition so you can buy another business, then there are 9 more documents that you need. Finally, bankers may ask for even a couple more documents, depending on your exact situation, like the last document that, almost caused Marie to lose her temper. We'll give a few examples, but if you're asked for something that we didn't cover today, don't worry about it. It doesn't mean something's wrong. There are all kinds of situations. Just remember the game mindset. If you're asked for something extra, no worries. Fill it out, get it back to the banker as soon as you can. All right, quiz question. What do bankers use financial documents for? Give me the number that you think is the most correct answer. Good job. Number 2, bankers collect these documents to evaluate you as a loan risk. Remember, the money a banker uses belongs to their depositors. It's not really theirs. So they really have to be careful with it. How is the loan application process like a game? What is the most correct answer? Stacy likes number 3. She thinks that one's funny. So the most correct answer is number 1, like a game. You do better when you complete your task and put pressure on the other side to complete their task. But number 4 is partly true. The rules are the same for everyone who applies, theoretically, but the results really depend on your track record and your history. So indeed, if you have a better track record, you have a better relationship with the banker, or you just have better numbers on your side, then the rules are different for you. So 4 is not incorrect, but I'd say number 1 is the best answer. All right, let's do a deep dive into the 12 required documents. These are the documents everyone needs to submit. We're going to include links to these documents in the PDF takeaways so you can look at them carefully when you have time. SBA Form 1919 is called the Borrower Information Form. And Monica's making some encouraging comments in there. Yes, it is just like buying a house, the same kind of a game. The Borrower Information Form asks questions about who owns the business and how it's structured. It asks if you have any existing debt, so that's your personal debt. It's also used to make a background check, so you got to be aware that they're going to do one of those on you. There are also some questions about whether you'll be able to hire or keep employees if you get the loan. Because remember, part of the mission of the SBA is to create or keep American jobs. So if your company creates or protects jobs, that's a plus for an SBA loan, but it's not required to get a loan. Next, SBA Form 1920 is called the Lender's Application for Loan Guarantee. Remember how I said that Loans get guaranteed by the government. This form is filled out by the lender, and it has some overlap with the one that we just did. So you don't have to fill it out, but it's just good to take a look at it and see what the lender needs to know for their application. SBA Form 413 is the personal financial statement. So the purpose of this form is to assess your ability to repay the loan. This is your credit worthiness. You might have filled this form out before if you applied for certification as a woman-owned small business, or if you've applied for a disaster loan or a PPP loan at some point in the past. It might be a familiar form to you. All right, dance break. If you find these items boring, you are not alone. Stacy's dancing over here. Filling out government forms isn't on my top 10 list of favorite things to do either, but they're not that bad if you take a break every now and then. All right, carrying on. You are going to need your personal tax returns for the past 3 years. If you don't keep a copy of your tax returns, you can get them from the IRS. You can get what's called a transcript of your tax return very quickly online. You can also get the entire tax return mailed to you, but it usually takes 5 to 10 days to get it. And I don't know with staff changes at the IRS if it's going to take longer now, so you need to leave a little extra time. If you haven't filed your taxes for the last 3 years, then you do need to clean that up. You're not going to be able to get a loan until you're in good standing with the IRS. That's just one of the facts of life. It's not the end of the world. There are programs to help you file your back taxes, and the sooner you get it done, the better. You are going to need to submit your personal credit report and your personal credit score. By law, you can get a free credit report each year from each of the 3 credit reporting agencies, which are called Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. To get that, you go to annualcreditreport.com. That's in the takeaway to order your free report. This is the only website authorized by the federal government, so don't get tricked by any online ads, and don't believe anyone who says you have to pay to get your credit report. Remember that link's in the takeaway, freecreditreport.com. It is possible to get an SBA loan if you have less than perfect credit, but better credit obviously helps. You will need to make a personal resume. Include your role today as the business owner at the top of the resume, and make sure to include any past jobs that were in your field to prove your skills and experience. If you've never made a resume before, that's okay. There are lots of free templates available. Just Google resume template and you will see templates you can download from reputable companies like Canva or Microsoft or Indeed. And those will be very helpful for you. Poetry break. Now, just talking about credit reports and resumes makes me a little tired. When you take a little break, maybe read some short poetry. Personally, I love Langston Hughes. With the sun in my hand, gonna throw the sun way across the land because I'm tired as I can be. Now, filling out documents will do that to you. And also winter will do that to you. So I'm very happy that we're having some warmer weather and some sun. You're going to need a business plan with financial projections. So let's talk about those separately. First, a business plan is just a document that tells what you're going to do with your business in the future. Those used to be really complicated and thick documents, but times have changed for the better. Bankers will accept much simpler business plans. They're called lean business plans now. There's a great article on SBA.gov, that's the U.S. Small Business Administration website, that will help you understand what needs to be in your plan. We'll include that link in the takeaway. There are lots of free templates for business plans. HubSpot actually has a pretty good one, so I'll put that in the takeaway. And do make sure that someone who is a good writer proofreads your business plan before you send it. Impressions matter, so you don't want to send a plan that has misspelled words in it, especially if English is not your first language. Get a friend to help you read that business plan so that you proofread and fix any mistakes in it. Second, a financial projection is just an estimate of how your business is going to do financially in the future. This is an example of one here. If you have an accounting ledger software like Wave, Zoho, QuickBooks, Xero, FreshBooks, these tell how your business did financially in the past. To make a projection, you have to guess how your business is going to do in the future. There are lots of financial projection templates online. However, some of them get pretty complicated. So if you don't know a lot about finance or accounting, you can find them kind of confusing. And so, for example, SCORE makes a free template. It works really well, but it really requires that you understand finance. It's actually pretty hard to use if you don't have financial experience. Smartsheet has a projections template that's reasonably simple, so I include that in the takeaway. But if you look at all these templates and you need help, that's not unusual. There are people who can help you. You can get a SCORE mentor for free. When you ask for the mentor, tell them you need somebody that can help you with financial projections, or you can hire a consultant like Zenagos, and we'll be happy to work with you on your projections. Once you're done, you'll know a lot more about how your business works, and that will help you with the most important part of the application, which is your plan for the use of funds. This plan, this detailed explanation of how the loan will be used, is the story that you're telling the lender about what you're going to do with the money. The bank wants to know that you're going to use the money to create new value. They want to know that you're going to spend the money in a way that will lead to making more money so that you can pay back the loan. Some stories are more convincing to bankers than other stories. So, like the financial projections, this plan for the loan funds is a really important place to get an expert opinion. So before you submit your application, get some feedback. You can go to your SCORE mentor and you get free feedback from an agency like MSBDC. So again, these two items, the business plan with financial projection and the explanation of how loan funds will be used, are documents where expert feedback is really important. Don't go it alone. Joke break. Doesn't talking about financial projections just make you feel like it's time for some humor? So here's some corny money jokes to lighten your spirits. Why didn't you report your stolen credit card? Because the thief was spending way less than I do. That's like a popsicle joke, right? One of those popsicles pop. No, it's like, why did the French fry run? Because you want to catch up, right? Why is dough another word for money? Because everyone needs it. Oh, that's very corny. That's a serious groaner. And always borrow money from a pessimist. They'll never expect it back. I'm honestly not sure that a banker would laugh at that one. Moving on, existing debts are an important piece of information for any banker when considering a loan. So you will need to provide a business debt schedule if you have any existing debts. You also need to provide a personal background statement. The SBA calls this a statement of personal history, or Form 912. This form asks questions about whether you're a citizen or a resident of the United States. It asks for a history of where you've lived and worked, and it asks questions about whether you've had previous criminal convictions, bankruptcies, or lawsuits. Your business should be registered with your state, such as the state of Massachusetts for us here in Zenagos. To get your business certificate of good standing, you go to the entity search on the state's website. So I'll include the link for Massachusetts on the takeaway, but you can get it for any state. Just look for entity search or something like that. When you go there, you click request certificate and it'll look something like the image here. Some fields require a state occupational license. So like a massage therapist or a nurse, you can usually check whether you need one on the state's website. So the page will tell you whether you need a license. I'll include that in the takeaway for Massachusetts. For other states, just search on state licensure. If you don't know whether your business is regulated, it's good to research your field on the state website. So for example, I spent my career in education, and a lot of people wouldn't think that education is a very regulated field that requires licenses, but it does. I know you need a license to open a school. So I couldn't just go and open a school and call it Karen's School. Somebody from the state would show up and say, you need a license. So I would go to the State Department of Education website and read about what kind of license I need to start a school. And I had to fill out a lot of paperwork. It's kind of like getting a loan from the bank. And last but not least, you need your loan application history. If you've already requested your credit report, it will be on your credit report, and it will include applications that you've made in the past for credit cards, car loans, student loans, mortgage loans, and so on. So that's the big 12, the dirty dozen, the dozen documents that everybody has to collect in order to apply for an SBA loan. So if you have questions, we can take questions at the end in the Q&A, and you can always connect with us on LinkedIn and chat with us afterwards as well. All right, quiz question. What personal information is requested in the 12 required documents? What's the most correct answer? Stacy knows that if Mavis wrote the question, the answer is all of the above. And in fact, it is all of the above. You need to have all of these things. Remember, it's important not to get cranky or impatient about it. It's just how the process works. All right, what business information is required now? We had personal information. What business information is required in the 12 forms. What is the most correct answer? In this case, it's actually number 2, business plan. So you often don't need a financial. I'm not sure about that. I'm going to go back and look at this question. I think it really is all the above. Mavis did write the question, and it's all of the above once again. All right, let's talk about the extra documents for particular situations. So if you're seeking a loan to start a new business, you usually need 3 additional documents. You already have a business plan, check. You already have a personal financial statement, check. The first new document you need is an estimate of your startup costs. So these are the one-time startup costs that you need when you start the business. So for example, you might need to pay a security deposit and first month's rent on your retail space, or you might need to pay for some licenses or permits, or you might have some legal fees for setting up your corporation. Usually doesn't take too long to make this list because you know what you're going to need to start your business. You also need cash flow projections for a new business. Now, this provides an estimate of what will happen to the business's cash in the future. It shows how much cash will flow into and out of the business. For most businesses, the cash flow is very similar to the financial projections. However, in some, it can be different because accounting has rules that don't follow cash flow. So, for example, if you buy a big piece of equipment that's expected to last for 10 years, then accounting would have you divide the cost up over 10 years. But cash says I have to pay for it right now. So all the cash goes out the door. So cash flow is divided into 3 kinds of activity. There are operating activities. This is the money that you spend delivering your regular offerings, so regular revenue and expenses. Then there are investing activities. This is when you buy or sell things like real estate or vehicles or equipment. And some businesses, it can also be ideas like patents. And then finally, there are financing activities, like if you got a loan or someone gave you money to invest in a company. Making a cash flow projection takes some practice. So this is another good one to check with an expert. Personally, I never bother to make my own cash flow statement. I just pay an accountant to do this one because it's easy to make mistakes with it. And the last thing you need for a new business is proof that you have any industry-specific certifications or licenses that are required. So we talked about this a bit before when we looked at the business license. You need to provide proof that you actually have the required license. So for example, if you wanted to start a bar and you needed to acquire a liquor license first, then the lender would say, I need proof that you have the liquor license. This image is a sample of a massage therapy license. Again, if you don't know, go to the state website and do a little bit of research. And don't be afraid to call people at the state and ask questions. This might take a little while to get back to you, but they are generally helpful. Okay, what is considered a new business? There's a question in the chat about that. It's a really good question. From a legal perspective, it's actually, pretty easy because it doesn't have an existing, you've never paid taxes on it, you've never started a corporation with it, and so it's new. You've never put it into your Schedule C on your tax return, so it's a new business. But you'll know if you have an existing business because you'll have multiple years of operations of filing tax returns, of creating financial statements and so forth. But it's a really good question. May not be obvious. Quote break. Okay, here are some quotes about money to keep you going when you have to go through all these documents. Acquaintance, a person whom we know well enough to borrow from, but not well enough to lend to. That was funny. Okay, quick question. True or false? A brand new business cannot apply for an SBA loan. False. An SBA loan is a government guaranteed loan, and one of the main reasons they exist is so that banks will lend to new businesses. Banks may not like the risk of lending to a new business, but the government backs the loans in order to encourage economic growth in the United States. What does a new business loan application require? What is the most correct answer? The most correct answer is number 4, cash flow projections. There's nothing wrong with the other things. A return on investment greater than 10% would be fantastic. It's just not required for a new business loan application. And there's nothing wrong with a recommendation letter or a list of potential customers. But the cash flow projection is, in fact, required for a new business loan. All right, that's it for a new business loan. Now, if you're seeking a loan to expand an existing business, you need 10 additional documents. These go pretty quickly because they're variations on the documents you've already heard about. And if you went to part 1 of our series, which by the way is recorded, so you can go to it, you will have learned about some of these documents, the profit and loss statement, the balance sheet, and the cash flow statement. So if you're like, what is a cash flow statement, Karen? You can go back and look at part 1, which is on the CDD website. All right, you already have your tax returns, check. You already have your business debt schedule, check. But if the business has been filing its own tax returns, then you need those too. You have to collect and submit the last year's bank statements as well. So getting that's usually pretty straightforward. These days, you can usually do it right away online. You're going to need aging reports for your accounts receivable and accounts payable, which are called AR and AP in most accounting systems. You can usually get them right out of the accounting software, or if you have a bookkeeper, you can get it from your bookkeeper. If you don't have either one, then you may need to take a little time to reconstruct your books before you can apply for a loan. This is something where you may be able to get a little bit of help from a score mentor or a state agency, but it will take you a little bit of time. When we talk to bankers, they say the number one thing that keeps people from being bankable is they haven't been keeping their books. Messy books, not good. So if that's you, you're not alone, but it's time to go get some help from a bookkeeper and rebuild your company's financial history. It'll cost you a little money and take you a little time, but if you want to get a loan, you're going to need it. You need year-end profit and loss statements for the past 3 years. Those usually come right out of the accounting software. It's called an income statement or a profit and loss. And again, you can learn about that in part 1 of our 2-part series. And you're going to need year-end balance sheets for the past 3 years. These are standard reports from your accounting software from your bookkeeper. If you're applying in the middle of the year, you're going to need an interim or year-to-date copy of your financial statements. And you guessed it, you can get that out of your accounting system. And if your business has a credit history, you need to get a copy of your business credit report. You've already put together your projected financials. They're also called projected profit and loss or projected income statement or just pro forma if you like to speak Latin. These are 3 standard financial statements. And yep, you can get them from your accounting software or your bookkeeper. If this is starting to sound repetitive, it's because all businesses have 3 standard financial statements. The first one's the most important one, so it has a lot of names. It's called the income statement or the profit and loss or the pro forma when it's in the future. This is the one you're used to seeing with the revenue on the top and the expenses on the bottom and the net income on the very bottom line. Second one's the balance sheet. This is the one with the assets on the top and liabilities and equity on the bottom. And finally, there's the statement of cash flows. We talked about that for a new business. This is the same thing, but you just have to do it for your existing business. A last little treat for expansion loan applications is that the banker will ask for your company's reconciliation of net worth. Okay, I see a question there. Can you explain number 4? Let's see. Was that number 4 on this list? Or number 4 earlier? Yes, on this list. Okay, accounts receivable and accounts payable aging reports. Okay, that's a little hard to explain, but if you have a business where when you make a contract with someone, they don't have to pay you right away, or a supplier where you make a contract with them, but you don't have to pay them right away, then that creates either an accounts receivable or an accounts payable. So a lot of businesses, you just get paid when you do the service, and then that's that. Like if you go to the hairdresser, you go and you give them cash, or you give them your credit card, you Venmo them or whatever it is, and then you've paid, and that's that. And so if you have a cash business like that, where you pay and you get the service, or if you're buying supplies, you buy this, you pay and you get the supplies, then there's no accounts receivable and no accounts payable. The amount would just be 0. But if you have something like net 30, you may have heard somebody say, well, I get paid net 30. So you perform a service, but the person has 30 days to pay you, or you buy the supplies and you have 30 days to pay them, then that creates something in your accounting books that's called accounts payable or accounts receivable. Does that answer the question? So if you have that in your business, then you need to show those numbers. So on account or with payment terms, exactly. That's right. Exactly. Good. Great question. All right. Moving right along. So our last little treat is reconciliation of net worth. So this is also called surplus reconciliation sometimes. It's a list of all the business deals that have changed your business's net worth over a certain period of time. So the purpose is to show what you've been doing that affects what you own. So the balance sheet is about what you own and what you owe. And so maybe you bought some equipment or maybe you sold some equipment. Either of these would change your business's net worth. So to make this document, you have to make a balance sheet before you did a bunch of things, and then you make a balance sheet after, and then you make a list of all the things that happened in between them. So this is another one that's a little complicated. If I had to do this, I would get my accountant to help me with it. I wouldn't try to make that one on my own because it can be pretty complicated. Zen break. I just like the word Zen because it's the start of Zenagos. But aren't these photos peaceful and beautiful? I was in a bamboo forest in Hawaii one time many years ago. It was amazing. It was very tall, like this picture on the right. So we have to take these peaceful moments so that we don't become annoyed by all of the documents that we have to prepare when we apply for a loan. All right, quiz question. What extra information is required for expansions? That's right. The most correct answer is number 3. Basically, all these 10 extra documents are just showing the recent results of the business. So if you're running a business, they want to see how has it been doing. This is our last set. So even if you're not asking for a loan to buy another business, this section is actually pretty interesting because most small business owners have a dream of selling their business one day. If you want to buy a business, then you need to have a price or a value for the business. So coming up with a price for a business is called valuation. In order for the bank to accept the valuation of the business, it needs to be completed by the bank itself or by a recognized licensed business broker that the bank respects. So just for your interest, here are 3 common ways that they decide the value of a business. The first method is called seller's discretionary earnings. This method works best for service companies that have strong income. So basically, you count up how much money the owner is regularly taking home, and you use that as a basis for the company's value. So if you're taking home $10,000 a month, wouldn't that be nice? Then you would add that up, and that would be used to make the value of the business. That's called seller's discretionary earnings. The second valuation method, and this is the most common one, is called market comparables or comps, market comps. This is similar to how we decide the price of a house. So we look at all the similar houses in the neighborhood and what they sold for, and then we choose a similar price for our house based on does it have the same things or slightly better things, more square footage. So like if you had a restaurant, you would look for similar establishments that had sold in the last couple of years, and you would use those to justify the price for your business. I made a fun video about how comps work that you can watch later if you're interested, and that link is in the takeaway. The third valuation method is called assets after debt, and it's just what it sounds like. You add up all the assets and you subtract all the debts, and you use that as a basis for your company's value. This method is most useful for retail businesses that have a lot of inventory. So if you sell rollerblades and you have a bunch of rollerblade pads and rollerblades and things in your store, those all have a lot of value. So you'd want to add all that up and have it included in the value of the business. But in the end, the value of the business is what you are willing to pay for it as a buyer, or what the buyer is willing to pay for it if you're the seller. So the buyer and the bank making the loan always want the lowest possible valuation, and the seller always wants the highest possible valuation. So like most things in life, business valuation ends up being a negotiation. Okay, more documents to buy a business. You need a purchase agreement. This is a contract. You shouldn't sign one without getting a business attorney and having them review it for you. When you get financial statements from a seller, you need all 3, the same old ones, but just from the seller. Income statement, balance sheet, statement of cash flows. They absolutely need to be audited when you buy a business, which means that an independent accountant or auditor reviewed them and signed off that they are accurate, because you sure don't want to buy a business and then find out that it isn't what you thought it was. We've already seen a balance sheet. In this case, you need a balance sheet for the day the sale will close. If you're buying a franchise, you need the franchise agreement. If the business has existing leases or any other kind of obligations, then you need to submit those. You will need to see the seller's tax returns. Depending on what the business structure is, you need a different IRS form. So here we've shown a partnership, which is called a K-1 form, but it could also be a Schedule C. When Marie bought the restaurant, it had been run as a sole proprietorship, and so she just needed a Schedule C from the seller. If the seller has any business debts that will be paid off as part of the transaction, then those need to be listed. You won't have the actual bill of sale until the transaction actually closes, but you have to show the bank a proposed bill of sale, like a sample bill of sale, so they can check over the terms of the agreement and make sure that's all fair. All right, quiz question. What extra information do you need for acquisitions? Mavis made the question. When you acquire a business, you do need all of these things. And so all that's left are a few special situations. There are some examples of, these are some rather, examples of special documents for special situations. So if you are using collateral to collateralize your loan, you need to give proof that you have the collateral. If you, are claiming that you're going to make a down payment, you'll need to make proof of funds that you have the money in the bank account to make the down payment, or money to pay the first few months loan payment. If you're buying a building, sometimes you need like an environmental report and all kinds of documents for your business entity. So, prove that the business exists, prove that it's registered. Once again, it doesn't matter how many documents the bank asks for. It just matters that you complete them and return them and maintain a good sense of humor. All right, so now we've covered the entire process from beginning to end. And as a reminder, first, build a relationship with the banker. Never too early to start that process. If you can get a little tiny loan and pay it back just to develop a credit history with the bank, that's a great idea. If you can get a credit line of credit, you don't have to use it, but just start building that relationship with the banker. Second, tell the business story. How are you going to use those funds to make your customer a hero, grow your business, and repay that loan? Third, surface any past financial issues using the I-FUL framework. And then finally, play the document game and keep your sense of humor. So now you know exactly what to expect. Now, I know you're all entrepreneurs, so you don't like asking for help. We entrepreneurs think we're supposed to be good at everything. But most people need some kind of help when they're trying to get a business loan. So remember the cash flow statement, the projections. If you have to do a balance sheet or you have to do a reconciliation, get some help. Don't try to go it alone. You may need an accountant to help you with some of those financial statements. You may need an attorney to help you review the loan terms. You never want to sign a really big debt without getting legal advice. And finally, you may need help from a business expert like us, the Zenagos experts, about how to tell your story or how to make your financial projections. There are tons of sources of free help for entrepreneurs. So Cambridge CDD is offering some individual coaching delivered by Zenagos for eligible Cambridge residents who participate in the workshop. So Jared talked about it at the beginning. If you go back, we'll post this recording and you can go back and hear about that. Or you can just contact him directly at CDD. SCORE provides mentors for free. And if you ask specifically, you can get a mentor who can help you with accounting questions or legal questions. MSBDC and Mass Development can help you with financial questions. Sometimes they'll actually help you directly make your financial projections. And if you want to brainstorm with the Zenagos expert, schedule a free consultation with Mavis on the Zenagos website. And that's it. You did it. You survived the Are You Bankable webinar. We should probably make a t-shirt, right? All right. Pop quiz. How did you like Are You Bankable? Put some feedback in the chat if you would, so that we can continually work to improve our webinar. And as promised, here is the QR code so that you can download the PDF takeaway. I think I see a question up here. Do you have to do anything differently to get a line of credit? It's usually just less complicated if you want to get a line of credit, because usually you're getting a line of credit from the bank that has your bank account. So they kind of know how much money you have and how often you use the money and so forth. So there can be similar forms, but it's usually just less involved than getting a loan. It's kind of like getting a credit card. It's kind of more similar to getting a credit card a little bit. Like credit card's the easiest, line of credit's the next. It's kind of more difficult, and then a loan is a pretty complicated situation, particularly if it's large relative to your business. Stacy just put the link for the PDF takeaway in there. There's a lot of pre-work before applying. Thank you, Jared, for that addition. Really helpful. Sweet. Okay. So we'll leave that QR code up there. And I don't know if you guys spotted any questions in there while we were going. Nothing that came along as we were working through.
I think you pretty much answered them as they popped up.
Good. Good. Okay, I'm gonna stop the screen share, but the link is in the chat if you still need the link. Okay, all questions were answered as we were going. Thank you, Monica. All right, any remaining questions? Anything that we can answer for you? All right, then, Jared, I think we're ready to.
Just one thing.
Oh, yeah, thing. Yes.
So I think what's helpful to remember about applying for an SBA loan is if you not only build a relationship with a banker in advance, but also consider taking out a micro loan in a couple of years in advance of actually needing a sizable loan. A micro loan can be as little as $5,000. It can be $50,000, something, or anything in between. Every bank has a slightly different definition, but you can pay it down, and then you've suddenly got a repayment history that works very much in your favor. And it's a big advantage. So a lot of people say, well, I don't need a loan right now. And I say, well, you might not, but if you think you might need one in the future, get a micro loan now and just establish the repayment history. And I've received this advice from several different bankers that we've talked to.
Okay. All right. That was Mavis Chin. She didn't get on the thing because she had a technical difficulty. So she was sitting. Oh, this is Stacy and Mavis there. So you can see the two of them. When you use that QR code to get your PDF takeaway, you might see a green button that says something like schedule a call. And if you do that, you can schedule a call directly with Mavis. I promise you won't try to sell you some consulting or anything else. She'll just answer your business questions and talk with you about SBA loans if that's something that you're interested in. So thank you, Jared. Really appreciate the time today.
Thank you. And just a reminder, I put in the chat some videos from our past workshops, including part 1 of the financial series with Zenagos. And I will also drop my email in there if you are interested in one-on-one coaching and are eligible. I am happy to connect you with the Zenagos team for that.
Great.
With that, if there's no other questions, I hope you all have a wonderful night. Thanks.